Good evening, listeners, and welcome to what is absolutely most definitely episode 63. Tonight we are joined by the man who puts the pro into Pro Painted, or at least the anyway into the Pro Painted podcast. Mr. Rob Ellis is joining us for the whole episode, so that's going to be fantastic because it means you haven't just got to hear about Space Wolves and Corn models. So we will go onto the hobby desk where we discuss Exodites and Star Wars and Space Wolves and more Star Wars and Nurgle. So lots of fun things to discuss there. And then into the Galaxy of War, where we talk about all the cool new stuff that's just been announced. This is on pre-order, and there's some box games to talk about as well. The Mortal Realms, we get a little bit luscious with the Slannesh release and chatting about that. That's going to worry you, isn't it? You might want to skip that section. Into the community, and we chat about our competition. We announce the winners of January, and we've got some great shout-outs as well. And then finally into the wilds, where we've actually got a really interesting segment where we're not clearly just grabbing at ideas of things to talk about. So we talk about Star Wars Legion and also really the kind of other miniature games, and why Games Workshop is right there shining the light. Oh. It's glinting off all the gold in their coffers. Guys, oh, by the way, good evening, Ben. How are you?
I'm just sitting as a spectator.
Okay, guys, you know what to do. Grab some refreshments and join us on the hobby desk.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Hobby Desk. And we're joined this week with by Rob Ellis from Pro Painted Podcast. Hi Rob.
Hi, how are you?
We're very well. It's lovely to have you on, mate. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like it's been a while since obviously we spoke in the past. Me and you both met at the open day. It was before last, was it?
It must be 2019 now.
I
think it's known as the Dark Ages, isn't it? How?
Yeah,
the time when people met.
Yeah, and socialised. I think it was the launch of Warcry. So yeah, 2019. That Christ, that was a long time ago. But no, yeah, all good. Yeah, nice to be on, and thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, mate. Very welcome. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to get you on. So, hobby desking. I've got to find out, Rob. What have you been doing? What mad projects have you been putting together?
Well, I've as we sort of said before we started recording, it's been a bit hard to, there was a sort of my long, almost meme-worthy Chaos Army that I've been working on, the Be'lakor conversion was a part of, and originally that was the Tzeentch kind of portion of that. I mean, I don't know if obviously people that have listened to the show have probably heard me talk about it, till I'm blue in the face. But
I've heard that there was bits about that army in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah. Well, funny enough, that's kind of where the inspiration came from with the some of the older Realm of Chaos characters. But yeah, so obviously that tournament shut down and everything with COVID, and it kind of meant that I always kind of worked or tried to work towards a deadline, and obviously that hadn't happened. So over the summer I had a bit of a downtime with the hobby, not downtime as far as I was feeling down, but as far as not much getting done, and kind of thought I'd reinvigorate myself with trying to I've always sort of had an idea for doing Exodites. I've always loved Eldar, and especially when the Lizardmen range got revamped, a few years ago with the new Carnosaur and stuff. That was always something that I had in mind. So I thought I'd try and sort of kickstart my hobby mojo. I bought into a lot of the new Necron stuff as well, but they're more for just a sadly get on the table and game with army rather than sort of any conversions and things like that. But obviously that hasn't really materialised. But
we all need those kind of armies.
Yeah, just something to like the paint scheme, the model, the model range is fantastic with the Void Dragon, and who knew a big winged model on a swirly base would be something that I'd like. It just seems to be, it's like a bit of a GW trope now that especially with the Flying Fox with the Lumineth and stuff like that, they always seem to try and draw you back in with these awesome centerpieces. But yeah, I've been working on my Exodites. I've been chopping up cold ones. Don't know if you can see them on the show them on the thing, the little cold ones that I've been repositioning.
Yeah, cool.
And using parts of the high elf. I mean, it's a bit of a standard conversion. I don't know if you guys remember Mike McVeigh's original Exodite rider conversion with the chaplain on the bike.
Yeah.
And there's the bit where he's used the high elf dragon rider. I don't know what the actual name, the technical name for a horse's head armor. I think I can't remember, it's some French name. But using the dragon ride, the Dragon Prince horse's armored head bits onto cold one bodies and stuff. Trying to source high elf dragon rider kits though now, with them being out of production.
Was a bit of a,
so had to bite the bullet and go on eBay and spend a bit of money on that, but managed to repurpose a lot of the dragon rider bits of the actual riders to make the riders for. If you can see that's pretty poor lighting, but you can see the pictures on my on Twitter. They're a bit. The riders are a mashup of the jet bike riders from the Eldar Guardian jet bike riders, and the cloaks from the Corsair, the old Dark Eldar Corsair kit.
Yeah,
and then some of the armor bits from the Dragon Princes as well. So they're coming along, but then I bit off a bit more than I can chew. I think with the cold ones, I've tried to make them pose a bit more dynamic, but the models, they're from that part of time with Games Workshop, and you guys probably know this all too well, where because a lot of Warhammer Fantasy models were obviously designed to be ranked.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the top of the models are really highly detailed, but underneath them aren't. So if you had like the old, I've got a couple of the cold ones that I want sort of jumping, like in that kind of Velociraptor kind of style, and there's a lot of area underneath the model that's just not sculpted, because the way that they did cavalry, GW did cavalry. If you look on, I think the silver helms were pretty bad fit as well, and like the reavers that you got with the island of there was just bits where they just went square at the bottom. So if you if you had like a 360 view of them, there were a lot of dead spaces, but obviously that was because they were designed to be ranked up and you'd never really see those areas, but it came as a bit of a surprise. So I've been trying to come up with an easy and quick way to sculpt cold one skin. So I made a few like little texture stamps and stuff from Milliput and green stuff to then stamp the green stuff as I sculpt it, which I thought it's kind of works. That's kind of Exodites and Necrons. So I don't know if do you guys read much or listen to much Black Library?
A little bit.
At all?
Yeah, I find I used to mock Dan for how much audiobooks he listened to rather than reading, but I've started to listen a lot more than because I just don't have time to read is the thing. It comes up to a decision between reading and painting. I'm going to choose painting every time.
Of course, yeah. And the good thing with audiobooks, you've got the best of both. You can do
them at the same time.
You're painting, do them both. But there's that Necron audiobook, The Infinite and the Divine, about it's just been released recently, about Trezor the Infinite and Oric and the Diviner, and they're sort of their characters are quite intertwined. But there's a section on it where Trezor the Infinite, obviously he's the guy who collects all the different stuff. He's got the he's got that supposedly a Primarch in his collection and things. He actually raids an Exodite world in the audiobook. So there's loads of descriptions of Eldar Exodites and things like that. So it was really handy, you know, the two armies that I was thinking of doing, you know, what the Necrons and the Exodites, to actually have an audiobook that was released that was very descriptive of both, you know.
So wait a minute. So they did a big flying dude like on a swirling energy, and now they've done a book with both the armies you want to do in them. Are you like an insider, dude? Are you influencing these things? Or what's going on?
I think it's the other way around. I mean, it's a bit of a long-running joke, not on the podcast, is throughout sort of my 10 years of, or a bit more of being back into the hobby, a lot of the conversions that I've done have then, Games Workshop have then released something similar. So I spent ages doing some jet bike conversions for Farseers and Warlocks and things, chopping up the old Finecast Warlock and Farseer bodies. And then 2 months later, they released a really nice new Farseer Skyrunner kit. I remember, you'll appreciate this, Ben. I did a load of, I wanted some Thunderwolf cavalry units in 5th edition, and you could get third party ones that people have made, but the only model obviously they made was the Canis Wolfborn on his Thunderwolf. I remember buying like a pack of 3 of those and still in metal at the time, and getting the Dremel out and reposing them and coming up with this unit of Thunderwolf Cav. And then 3 months later they released Thunderwolf Cavalry in plastic. And so it's I've got a few friends that are like, you know, crack on with your Exodites, and then all of a sudden you'll have Games Workshop will release an Exodite army.
I'm actually just working on Canis Wolfborn at the moment.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I love that model. I'll have to post a pic of one of my old conversions that I did with him, because you'll appreciate being a Space Wolf guy. So yeah. No, it's funny you should mention that Dan, because that is actually, I think I'm bugged. They've probably got sort of every time I go into the hobby room, I have to sort of have one of those little sweepy things to sort of, and run it under the lamps and up on picture frames and stuff, just to make sure I'm not being listened to.
In fairness, if they did release Exodites, it would be a long time coming. It is
definitely
about time, because they've always been a fan favorite, Exodites.
Yeah, and I think it's strange that obviously Eldar need a new an update, especially a lot of the plastic. Obviously we've seen Banshees and Chainzar, but a lot of the other, and obviously we've got plastic Dire Avengers, but what I wouldn't give for a complete sort of Craft World revamp. That would just be.
It would be amazing if they did the Exodites before the Craft World, the salt.
Oh, can you imagine? There was one thing, and I'll finish it on the. I'll finish this bit on this, because I'm sort of, I don't want to rant too much, but there is one description in that audiobook of like a brachiosaur type of dinosaur that has got like prism cannons on its back and stuff. So that's my next kind of project, is to. I'm going to try and sculpt pretty much a medium-sized brachiosaur from scratch. It's like obviously you utilize a lot of the Eldar bits for like the Howdah and the weaponry and all things like that, but the main body itself, I was thinking of perhaps using one of the engines of the God kits as a sort of almost as a base. Almost like cut off the legs and extend the legs and bring the body up. And then you've got a bit of more of a framework to work with. But I've been looking at a lot of I've got some really good sculpting, like clay sculpting kind of books and stuff that I've bought in the past to help me with certain techniques. And that was something that's the next kind of big project.
I'd probably go to a toy store.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm weird. Like I won't even use third-party tufts on my bases, like let alone like any sort of. It has to be, and I know I'm constraining myself with especially converting as much as I do, but It's got to be, I don't know, I feel like going even just outside the box to places like Spellcrow or whatever, the people that do the sort of third-party add-ons and stuff. I just feel like it's a little bit cheating, and I just, I know I could go and buy I'm actually going to buy one as a reference for sculpting to sort of see where the sort of folds in the skin go and stuff like that. But I won't actually use it. There's a few Exodite armies out there, if you look on Pinterest or if you Google it, where people have just like stuck a wave serpent on the back of a T-Rex toy, and stuff like that. But it's
to be fair to you, as we've already established, the Inquisition are listening to you, so you can't go using third-party stuff because they might take you out.
Yeah, well, that's it. I can. If you see a red dot on me at any point on this Zoom call, then let me know and I'll duck. So that's kind of that's been my hobby. It was nice just listening to that audio book because it also it humanized, for want of a better word, a lot of the Necron characters as well. Obviously they'd always in the past be seen to be sort of these mindless automatons, and I know in sort of the most recent codexes they have tried to shift them more towards having some the higher up lords and things have more of their conscious and they remember their past and stuff. But it's really interesting to listen to that audio book because I mean, I don't, again, not to go on too much of a tangent, but Necrons always seem to me to be the most realistic 40k race, because all their stuff is actually based on, although it's like really high science fiction, it's more, they're more of a science fiction race than a science fantasy race. If that makes sense. So it's almost like you could imagine their technology working, because it's all like wormholes and tachyon lasers and all this kind of stuff. Whereas
God loves tachyon, amazing.
Yeah, and, rather than just rather than just praying to a bolt gun to make it work,
or diving into hell itself to move through the universe.
Yeah. Or being sentient fungus that makes, the only reason their technology works is because they believe it to work. But I'm not an orc guy, as you can probably tell. But yeah, that's been me. So that's probably the longest hobby desk bit thing that you've had from a guest.
No, it's great.
I do apologise when I get passionate. I tend to go off on a bit of a.
Don't apologise for passion about miniatures. To be honest, it's nice because mostly people just have to put up with me screaming about blood and red and gold and Ben whittering on about things with beards. So that's ace. I love that.
You two. Well, a bit of glimpse into my old 40k history. I've been both a world eater and a space wolf player, so I can both sides of the 2P's coin are covered.
Which is the best? I'm just going to get ready on the expel from Zoom button, by the way.
Well, do you know what? This is going to be blasphemous to both of you, but when I got back into 5th years and years ago, the Chaos Space Marine book had gone from being quite powerful to not that powerful. So I actually ran a World Eater list using the Space Wolf rules. So that's like double heresy, isn't it?
I love it.
Yeah.
Don't get any
cool
ideas,
miniatures, and then because the 5th edition. I mean, the 5th edition Space Wolf book was. So I used to be quite competitive into my 40k, and it was quite a potent book. So yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
Good times.
Yeah, good times. need new Berserker models though. We need new Berserker models, and we need an Angron.
Yeah,
that's what we need. GW, if you're listening.
Yeah, come on. Have you started converting Berserkers yet? Because then we'll get them, won't we?
Do you know what? I did a unit. This is the other thing. This will crack you up, and I'll promise I'll be done after this. Right? This is perfectly sums it up. I did a unit of. They were a Wolf Guard on bikes, but I was using Juggernaut models with. I'd converted up some Chaos Knights. I'd bought some Chaos Knights. I'd gotten the Forge World. Do you remember Forge World did like a Berserker upgrade kit almost?
Yeah.
And it was just the body and the shoulders and the heads. So I'd bought some Chaos Knights, fantasy Chaos Knights. I'd bought some Blood Crushers, so the demon juggernauts. So with the what they called the lesser demons of Cordovan on the back of them. That's the one. And so I'd done this sort of 40k unit of dudes riding on the back of juggernauts. Guess what they released a month later?
Yes. Yeah.
The Skull Crusher kit.
The Skull Crusher.
God damn it. Yeah, and luckily, the guy at GW, my local town, was nice enough. I hadn't actually started chopping up the Bloodletter Crusher combination box, and he let me refund them, and I went and bought 3 boxes of Skull Crushers then, and I had a unit of 8 of them with the Lord, and that was great.
Yeah,
they were good. They were good to proxy as Thunderwolf Cav. They were good. That's what they were good to run as well.
Excellent.
I remember all of the third-party bits.
Yeah, that's me done.
Yeah,
do you remember the Mr. Dandy ones?
Yeah.
I think I've still got some of them somewhere.
I never brought myself around to buying them.
They're massive, though. They're huge compared to...
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're kind of Canis Wolfborn, so...
I can't give them away.
No.
Size, yeah, they're big.
So, Ben, what...
Yes, so, yeah, I promise you I'm done.
It's fine, dude. It's fine. Ben, what have you been doing? Does anyone wish to guess what Ben's been doing? Any guesses?
No.
There we go.
The name for horse armor, by the way, is barding. Just Googled it.
No. It's the head.
Gonna be imparting some real knowledge on people.
I want to say like something like chevron or something like that, because someone mentioned it when I was what are they called? Chanfron. Chanfron. CHAN. Chanfron. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Chanfron.
Yeah, that's the one. That.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I've been painting Space Wolves. Anyone who guesses doesn't get any points. Nil point. Did I? When we recorded this last, I don't think I'd talked about. I don't think I'd done Ulrich the Slayer, had I? No. So yeah, the day after we recorded last time, I did Ulrich the Slayer, which might be the favourite model I've ever painted. It was just wonderful to paint that. After so many years of looking at it and being worried that I would screw it up, to get stuck in and do a half decent job of it it felt great, actually. It
looks. I looked at the picture of it the other day. It's really, really, really well done, and it looks a lot realer, if that makes sense, than a lot of the stuff you'd sort of done previously. I don't know if that was intentional or that was just the lighting of the shot or whatever, but it looked like it looked more like almost like an artist's painting of Ulrich the Slayer. Do you know what I mean? The way that you painted it looked really, really good. Really nice.
I'm really happy with him. The yellow on him just was an arsehole, basically. I really don't like painting yellow in medium areas. If you're painting a little blob of yellow, that's fine. If you're painting a whole Space Marine in yellow, that's fine. But that kind of like a yellow shoulder pad, especially if you're working around details, I hate it. I just hate it so much. But he turned out. I'm really happy with how he turned out. I'm just chuffed to bits with him, actually. So I did him the day after, and then as a test model, I finished all my Grey Hunters, which was like a huge kind of fanfare moment with party poppers and all that kind of stuff. Because that's all of the infantry done for my Space Wolf company, which is huge actually for me. and I got the last sort of batch of my old Marines Space Wolves out. So the Wolf Guard, Terminators, Wolf Guard and Power Armor, a Swift Claw unit, and that's it. Yeah, and then they're on the table at the moment. So I airbrushed all their armor in exactly the same way as I airbrushed. I put the Assault Intercessors in there too, and I airbrushed all their armor in exactly the same way as I did my original Intercessors, but I used the rust grey airbrush paint rather than the rust grey normal paint, and the color difference was quite a lot. really. Yeah, so I think the only thing I did do slightly differently is I zenithed the Halfords grey with grey sear before I sprayed it, and they were a lot brighter. So I got in a bit of a moment with because I painted up one of the Assault Intercessors to finish, because I always do that when I'm about to paint a batch that I've not painted before, just to see in my head how long it's going to take, what the stages will be. So when I then start batch painting, I kind of know what I'm doing a bit easier. And he was a lot brighter than the old Intercessors. So it took me a little while to get over that, actually. Or rather, it took me a little while to convince myself I didn't have to go back and redo all the Intercessors that I'd already done to try or somehow make them brighter.
I knew that was going through your head. Yeah. I was like, as soon as you sent me that, I was like, he's thinking about redoing all the stuff he's done already. And there he is.
Like, genuinely, the thought did cross my mind of sticking them all in paint stripper and doing them all again so they're all the same. But I've talked myself out of it. You'll be pleased to hear. Because the Intercessors weren't too one of my best units in the past. So, yeah, so at the moment, that big batch is mostly the way through base coating. So the only base coat I need to do is red, and that's not including the faces. So red and like the stone for the Terminator shoulder pads, the Crux Terminatus, but and the black, red, black, and the stone, and then I'll start putting in the shades and the washes, and then they'll be highlighting up. So they're a lot further along than I was hoping. I'd set aside 14 weeks I'd worked out for that batch as individual units, and I'm only 2 weeks in. I got most of the base coating done, so I'm sort of tentatively hopeful I'm going to knock a big block of my plan off a lot faster than I was hoping. Cool. Which is cool, because I had hoped to get my Space Wolves done in a year, less than a year, and I don't know if you heard, Rob, in the last couple of episodes, I worked it out that it was probably going to take me 82 weeks. I was like, oh God.
Right.
To just catch up with my Space Wolves. But yeah, I'm hoping it won't be that. And then finally, I've painted Lucas the Trickster, which I got to be honest, I really struggled with. And I don't know why. I just didn't get on with the model. You know, when you're painting a model and you're like, I'm not getting on with it. You kind of, it's just something didn't click, and there's nothing about it where I look at it and think I could have done better in the whole thing, because I suppose I slightly rushed it, because Lucas the Trickster isn't one of my favourite models, but he's cool to have in the army. So, but I don't know what it is. There's no individual thing about it that I can put my finger and go, I don't like that. But
is he the guy that if he dies, he captures you in like a stasis bomb?
Yeah, his second heart's got a stasis bomb. He places it. So, yeah. He's in some ways he's one of my favourite Space Wolf characters, because he's so different from them all.
Yeah,
he adds a sort of wild card into them. So, like, for one of the little cool bits of background gag I find really exciting about him, like the changeling can't really disguise himself around him. He just knows that it's the changeling, as if he's just got this sort of sixth sense about other people playing tricks. He just knows when it's happening.
Right.
So he's quite a cool character. But at the same time, I just didn't. From the moment I started painting him, I thought, I'm not going to have an end product that I'm as happy with as
the model that you've got of him, is he metal or fine cast?
He's metal, and I have to say I don't really get on all massively well with metal models. I find them harder to clean up than plastic model. Much prefer plastic models. So,
do you think that might have sort of just the whole process and the whole kind of like ambiance, as it were, of the miniature itself kind of put you off him a little bit?
Yeah,
the
and
metal and
he was one of the ones I'd never been excited about. So like when I picked up Ulrich, I'd been looking at him for months and sort of had ideas about how I was going to approach things, and had come to the decision I was going to mainly stick to the colours, the box art colours, but do things a little bit differently. And Niall Stormcaller, I've always loved that model because he just feels like he's got a storm coming around him. The Raven's always cool. I love the Raven. But Lucas is just one that I bought because I buy all the Space Wolf characters. So I got him, and I don't know, I just sort of look at him and think, I was looking for a model to paint that weekend, and I thought, well, I'll do him, fit him in. So I didn't have any.
More of a tick box exercise with him rather than a passion project, as it were. Yeah,
but he's done. So yeah, it's nice to have him in the army. And the last thing I've done, which is I suppose worth not noting, is I used a guide done by Christian's painting studio on Instagram for a lava sword, which I quite like the look of. I mean, he'd done it on Stormcast and it looked really nice. So I thought I'd have a go of putting that on one of my Wolfguard power swords.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I was quite happy with that. What I've done with him is he's going to have a fire sword and an ice sword. And his background is going to be that he was a twin, and they both got ascended to being Space Wolves, and they were completely different personalities. One was really quiet and sort of icy cold, and the other one was fiery. And so when they sort of built their way up through the ranks, they got given a fire sword and an ice sword, sort of to match their personalities, because that's the sort of thing that the Wolf Priest would do. And then when they were in a battle, one of them died, and the one that survived got escalated to being a Wolf Guard, and he now carries both of the swords. But in the process of losing his twin, he's kind of gone back to being the middle ground. He's sort of, no one really knows which one of the twins it is, because...
Oh, that's awesome.
But he carries both swords.
The twins called George and Martin. Song of Ice and Fire, George and Martin, anyone? No?
No.
So, come on.
Hang on.
Yeah. So it's Game of Thrones, isn't it? Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, no, very good. Yeah. Got that, yeah. In retrospect, that's slow.
Yeah, good.
They've far too many clothes on to be in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Naked Space Wolf berserkers.
Oh, there we are. They're called Wolfen, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
They got the kind of obligatory thigh plates, but that's about it. Wolf. And some shoulder pads. No need for any other armor. Yeah, so that's me. So it's mainly just sort of working my way through this batch, which is can start ticking. I think tomorrow I'm going to do. I can never remember. Jack's Rockfist. So I've got most of his base coating done. So I'll probably just sort of finish him off tomorrow. He's a model that I really haven't got on with, because I bought him maybe the first couple of weeks of Finecast came out. So the miscasting on this has included, there was not much left of the gem above his head. His nose didn't exist. His hammer had a hole in so big that I had to rebuild the entire hammer handle. There isn't a single wolf tooth on here that didn't need some green stuff to fill a hole in. The pincers, he's got like forging pincers. They needed a complete resculpt. So did 2 or 3 of the dangling like stone tablet things. And one thing that I found today when I was doing the gold is the thing on his bottom, on his thigh here, it's missing a bunch of the detail, so I don't even know if I can be asked to go back and sculpt that in. So I basically re-sculpted most of the detail on it. And I'm just tired of looking at it now, like, because I mean, I just spotted that the anvil on his head's got a whopping great hole in it. So it's one of those models where every time I look at it, I find something that needs fixing.
It's such a shame because he's cool.
He's
the whole
awesome.
idea of him is awesome, but yeah,
and the model is awesome. It's just, if it was in plastic, it would be perfect. Is my feeling about him. But hopefully I can make him look half decent tomorrow. And people won't notice where I've sculpted fill the gaps in. So how about you, Mr. Jolly? Playing the game that you're not playing. And painting the models that you're not painting.
Yeah. I have had a bit of an eclectic couple of weeks. So not long after we recorded the last episode, I finished up my unit of 5 Blight Kings. So for the Age of Sigmar sort of Taylor Gamers, a group of us are doing Bristol. So we've got Blight Kings. Sorry, we've got Maggotkin and Nurgle. We've got Stormcast. We've got Dispossessed. We've got an Ideneth. And we've got Slaves to Darkness being done.
What's the hobby goal each week for that, or month?
Month. So the first month was just a battle line and a character. So
right.
I did a Lord of Plagues and 5 Blight Kings. So yeah, got them finished up. Quite enjoyed doing those. Painting quite differently to how I normally do. They're quite dirty with lots of sort of enamel washes and stuff on. But then I've gone with quite vibrant bases. So it looks like life is like bursting into life around them, and like little nurglings are dancing in the flowers and stuff on their bases, and then it's all just going to rot away. So yeah, I quite enjoyed doing that. And this month I'm doing another 5 to make the unit up to 10, and a Lord of Afflictions, which is the guy on the fly with the trident. Although, as I put on Twitter, I'm convinced that the little dude is actually the Lord of Afflictions, because there's like a little nurgling on a little tiny fly. It's brilliant. Yeah. Love it. It's really funny. So
somebody really ought to do a Nurgle army where they're all based on the right bases, but like the little nurgling Lord of Afflictions is Lord of Afflictions, and different ones for the Blight Kings, and
they
all on the right bases.
Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, I finished up that, and then I was waiting for the start collecting to arrive. So while I was waiting for that to arrive, I started painting a unit of rebellion commandos from Star Wars Legion, which I'm not collecting at all, obviously, apart from them, and the unit of death troopers that accidentally ended up in my cart, along with what is his name? Krennic, he's called. So yeah, I have to be honest, they grow on me every day, because to start with, I was very dismissive of the models, but actually I'm quite enjoying their simplicity in a way as well. And I am deliberately choosing to go for speed to try and get them done, because I'm not getting a lot of time to paint at the moment. So I'm going with like desert theme. So yeah. Which kind of, one of the things that unlocked it a bit for me was I found online some STLs for some of the models, but desert themed. So like the big laser cannon for the Rebellion, and also the laser man portable laser for the Stormtroopers, the crew are done up in like their snow gear, and yet like the commandos are done in like desert / Yavin type, Endor type gear, and then someone else is done in desert gear, and I'm like, this isn't going to make an army. But then I found that you could get the STLs and print out the crew, but with like desert get up on. So that's quite exciting. So I got them. So yeah, I'm working on them at the moment, doing camouflage on their cloaks. I've never done camouflage, so that's new. It's kind of, I'm of two minds as to whether it looks like camouflage or just looks like a mess. But if I'm far enough away from the table, I can't see them because they blend in to the terrain. So that's fine. I figure that that's a done deal. So they're on the way. And I have been 3D printing things. So Marcus wanted some little snake guys done that he found. So I did them. They were they didn't come supported. They were unsupported STLs. So I had to spend a bit of time putting in the supports and stuff for them, which was new because I hadn't done that before. And then I've had a go. I've printed some. Hang on, where are they? I'll put some. I've already put pictures up, but I've printed some of the evaporator things from the original films.
Yeah, from
awesome.
Yeah, so I've printed 3 of those. But this was my kind of click and go excitement of the 3D printer has suffered doing these. This was the 3rd print to get these because I tried them lying down and they ended up wonky, which you don't want from your evaporator. Then I tried them on the build plate and it all built up around the base and they broke. So in the end, I actually tried to do it properly and I hollowed them out so that all the resin could drain out properly, lifted them and angled them slightly. So put in some heavy supports underneath and I got them to come out real nice and saved that file for the future. But what I've noticed is the resin printer is really nice for the sort of the miniatures. So I've been using it so for like the War Master and for that sort of stuff, it's really good. But for anything bigger, it takes so much time and effort to try and get all the supports right, etc., and faff around with it. So that's just made me want the filament type printer even more now for doing this terrain, because there's some wonderful stuff for terrain out there for that.
The Loot Studios thing I'm signed up for. They did a chicken house on legs.
Yeah.
And it says in there that it's designed to be done on a resin printer, but there's a whole blurb in it about how they've broken it into lots of little pieces and how it could warp and disfigure and how it definitely wasn't a project for the faint-hearted. You had to know what you were doing because it was just going to take ages to sort out. But they thought they'd do it anyway because it was cool. So I did wonder whether or not you were going to read that little blurb and go, can I be bothered or not? Or is this going to be too much? So,
I think it's like everything, isn't it, in the hobby? There's so many cool bits. There's only so much time in the day. So it's just have to try and work out what's worthwhile.
If you've got to spend a couple of hours putting supports in to do that, I don't think that file, for example, has supports just to make the print work.
I guess the trouble is as well, when you're inexperienced with it, you don't necessarily know that it's going to work. So like with those evaporators, the print time on those, the lying down print time was 3 hours. And when I stood them up, it was over 5 hours. So, it's not a big deal in a way because I print them overnight anyway. So it doesn't matter. But it's not like printing a piece of paper where you're going to find out pretty quick whether you've mucked it up or not. But that's fine, it's all experimenting. I've also finished off the bases. For some reason, I got probably because I got distracted, but I got my Black Knights and my Bats from my War Master army painted, but I never did the bases. So I did all the bases on them. And I did a bit more, carried on with, I've got 2 units of whites, which I did a bit more too. But then got distracted, surprise, by painting painting the Nurgle and
Riftstalkers, doesn't it?
Luke Skywalker. I've painted some Riftstalkers, yeah, but I talked about that before. I've got a big box of those to do, which I haven't started yet. I did open the box and look at the sprues. They look cool. They're still on the sprues, but I'll get to them. I was hoping to do a unit of them. For some reason, I thought I'd get a unit of them done in January. I don't know why I thought that. Must have been a bit mad. But yeah, it's really quite cool because last year, Cast Thy Minds Back, it was all about Khorne. Certainly for the first half of the year, 6 months, I was just right.
The whole year.
It was. I did that Land Raider and then I did 40 odd cultists, and then it was on to like a massive batch of demons, and it was just red and gold, red and gold, red and gold. Whereas now I'm just like, right, I'm going to paint this. So, right now I'm painting Nurgle. Now I'm painting stuff from Star Wars. Now I'm painting Warmaster, printing some scenery.
It's good though.
It is. I really did not want to get into this game, and it is your fault, Benjamin. No, actually, it's Chris's fault.
I was going to say, can't blame me rather than Chris.
It is mostly Chris's fault, but also it's your logic, your Gilliman logic of like, I've got a character, so he's got to have a bodyguard.
Yeah.
And then, but then it went, well, I've got a character, he's got a bodyguard, they've got to have some protagonists. So I'll get them. And then you're halfway. Then I started watching the films again. And basically, the moment the writing scrolls up and it goes, dun, 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 you just go, order, buying that. And I read the rules and I like the rules. The Fantasy Flight's sometimes a bit heavy on the old counters and cards and stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But I do like the rules. So it's quite cool because I don't know if you've looked at them at all, either of you, but they center around the squad leader. So like you do his movement and you see how he's affected by terrain and what he can see when he's shooting and stuff. And then the unit.
Talk about this in the Into the Wild section.
Maybe, but I'm excited. Okay. Cut.
Not just me that rants. Then it's good to see.
No. That's why That's why I get left to the end, Rob, because you know what's going to happen. Okay. Well, I'm sorry for those that I have put my information in the wrong section. Next time, I'll just bring some shit about Space Wolves to talk about. No, you are quite right.
My yard jack's got too many holes in it. And
So, for more about Star Wars Legion, join us Into the Wilds. That's a bit of my David Bellamy again for Marcus.
Yeah.
In that case, then, shall we move forth into the galaxy of war?
Let's do it.
Let's.
Now, is it a galaxy long time ago, far, far away? No. Okay.
No, not that galaxy.
Wrong galaxy. Oh, wrong galaxy.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Galaxy of War. A very grim and dark place that it is. So, a few things have gone up on pre-order since we last spoke. Mostly power armored things and a very cool Necron. We were talking about when did we see that preview? Do you remember, Rob? Ben and I weren't sure. It was a little while ago, wasn't it?
Chronomancer was, I'm pretty sure it would have been around the October, maybe. We saw it quite a while ago.
Yeah.
I think it was the same time that they showed was it the same reveal that they did the Spirit of the Mountains and stuff for the
Luminous?
It was like the second wave of the Luminous stuff, maybe. I'm not sure. They've done so many, which is great, but it has been a bit of a while ago.
I've lost track of all of the Necron characters now. I'm gonna have to. I did get the codex because I've got enough of the sort of basic infantry in that from the two Indomitus boxes that I figured I may as well have the Codex in case I ever wanted to blow it up into an army. But I'm going to have to get out and read it because I kind of lost track. Chromomancers, pyromancers, something mancers, necromancers,
psychomancer. There's the one model I like. I think he's called a psychomancer. It's the one who's got like the digitized face.
Yeah, that's the one.
In front of him.
Yeah. That's the one on pre-order.
Just how that. Yeah, and just how that as you turn it, it's like the old the Channel 4 idents. So it will spin, and then the face will just appear because sort of as all the different blocks are at different sort of views of perspective and stuff.
Is that like what you did with really the cool Chaos Star on Bellacor's base?
Yeah, on Bellacore. Yeah. So I've been thinking of. Well, yeah, exactly.
Again. I remember listening to you describing how you were going to do that and thinking, "What? That sounds amazing."
Yeah. It's sort of almost, you have to sort of say to people, right, hold your head at this angle. You know, you can kind of, you know, if you know to look for it, you can see it there. But I just like when GW are a bit more, you know, obviously with the new technology and everything, and how it allows for sort of more creativity and dynamically posed models and stuff. But when they do little things like that, I think that's really clever. But yeah, the new Necron range is, I mean, they've just gone, hopefully Eldar get the same sort of treatment as the Necrons did, because I really, really do like the new Necron range.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the monolith. Oh, it's so good. I love it. And especially because the monolith, like when the monolith came out first, it was obviously such a massive kit. And at the time it came out, it was like, whoa, that is amazing. And then everybody tried to build it, and it was an absolute pain in the flipping arse. I had so many of them I just got angry with when I was building those. But anyway, then when they've done the new one, I feel like it's had a similar kind of wow factor, because it's much bigger again, isn't it? And obviously, it's like the little touches, like the little energy beams, whereas obviously in the old one you had the little sort of perspex door, but now they've actually got a Necron kind of emerging of an energy field around them and stuff. Little touches like that are brilliant. I love them. Even the terrain is just superb. Like that terrain piece that they've got is really nice.
Yeah, Convergence of Dominion, I think it's called.
Is it?
Yeah,
is that the thing
really
that sucks like the warp away or something, and everybody just feels really down? I'm sure that's what they're doing.
That's the Boris Johnson weekly coronavirus update that he does on a Friday. Lockdown for another 2 weeks. All the energy is just sucked out of the fucking nation.
So what you're saying is the entire Necron army is actually a weaponized version of Boris Johnson. I love it.
Oh Christ! Can you? That's a conversion for another day, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. I'm happy with that. So also Dark Angels. If you're looking to do a Chaos Army, you can. You got them coming out.
The cover art on that is something else.
Yeah, they really, really irritate me, the Dark Angels, because I flipping love them. Like I love their color scheme is awesome, and they're kind of the knights and the winged helmets. Oh, I just love all of that. They are just a bunch of dicks, though, aren't they? Really, like in the background.
I will say. I mean, when you say about knights, I think the Blade Guard veterans look the best done up as in that Deathwing colorway. Ooh. I think of all the colorways I've seen the Blade Guard veterans done in, they haven't done as Dark Angels in the sort of light bone armor. I think they look lovely.
I like
it's a toss up between that and Black Templars.
Yeah.
I love them as Black Templars as well. But yeah, they do. It's not even the Dark Angels, it's just the Lion. I just don't like the Lion. Just an idiot. But anyway, that was
he is a challenging character to like, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
In the Horus Heresy novel.
Mm.
Like in Lehman Russ Primarch one, like I'd actually sort of grown to like him a little bit across the novel, and then in the last bit where he sucker punches Lehman Russ in the Emperor's Palace after the Siege of Terror and stabs him through the gut, and Lehman Russ is just standing there unarmored, absolutely devastated because his dad's been and he wasn't there, and the Lion took that opportunity to stab.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I was like,
Ben does that all the time, isn't it?
Well, if you don't know that the Emperor gets like smashed up in the Siege of Terror, then frankly, you're listening to the wrong podcast.
Or more importantly, you do now.
Yeah.
Actually, on that topic, is a sort of tidy segue. I listened to Master of Mankind this last fortnight, which is a very good read or listen book. Yeah.
Even though, and this
cover.
I know Dan's going to jump in and say, but I even had to have Dan explain what one of the reveals was because I didn't know what it was.
So, Master of Mankind is basically the war in the webway beneath the palace. So, once Magnus, again, spoilers, once Magnus smashes a hole in through the webway, and all hell breaks loose, literally, and all the demons are like flooding into all the man-made bits under the palace. It's all set around there. But
right.
So one of the, do you mind knowing, by the way? Because
no, that's fine.
It's a bit late now anyway. I've started with that, but one of the key sort of things through it is there's this. It opens with like a flashback to the first ever murder of one human, one human, and the creation of the demon from that first murder. And it follows awesome. Like the demon of the first murder through the warp and it's code and all the rest of it is brilliant. It's really good. And then like fast forward to the 41st millennium.
Definite spoiler alert now. If you don't want to know the spoil for this,
so fast forward, and there's this and it's following this demon and it's like super powerful and it's like smashing shit up. And then you find out that the demon is called the End of Empires. It's like it's like chanting it like End of Empires, and it's like whoa, like there's this massive demon coming to find the Emperor, and it's called the End of Empires. But then you one of the Custodes dreadnoughts is saying like I can feel its like demonic name. And it's saying it, and it's going Dracan, which is the sword that friggin' Abaddon has.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my goodness. Ben's like, yeah, what's Dracan? Like,
that's awesome.
What?
That's
so
awesome.
So then, and what's cool about that is it takes it from Guilliman, Sword of Emperor Guilliman, versus Abaddon, who you're thinking, well, no, because Abaddon's just, he's good. Don't get me wrong, he's really good, but he's not a Primarch. But now he's got the sword of the End of Empires, which is the demon that even the Emperor was like, although he did knob it. Well, he didn't, though. He didn't kill it. He couldn't kill it. He traps it in a Custodes and then sends the Custodes off. So that's another awesome story to be told about how that ended up being in the demon. So yeah, it's
so
very
good. We've just completely spoiled.
That's the main bit. There's some lovely moments in there.
You don't need to listen to that book because it's done.
There's a bit where this Mechanicum construct thing has set up this idea that all of the Mechanicum units are going to try and make for Mars. And it describes it going a little bit wrong. Well, look, we said spoilers.
That's like we have utterly ruined this book now.
Yes, but there's this great bit where this Skitarii Legion, like flipping loads of them, rock up to where they're supposed to be going, and they find that the webway sort of just disappears into mist. And so he sends forward one of like the Doomstrider things. And it goes into the mist and then stops communicating, just disappears completely. They're like, huh, that's strange. So he sends through another one, disappears completely. That's strange. And then he's like, well, the imperative is that I've got to go this way. So then the whole lot of them march in, and then it just says, and they're all reduced to their component atoms as they march straight into the warp through a broken part of the webway. And they're just like, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so anyway, don't need to buy that.
Master of Mankind, the abridged version featuring Dan Jolly.
Yeah. We've just managed to cover off the 3 big spoilers, and
yeah.
I've alongside that been reading or listening to the Dune novels, and I'm getting a bit crossed over actually, because it's so clear where a lot of the influences for the Emperor and Imperium came from Dune. But and I've never listened to or read before the other 5 novels. I only ever read Dune, like the original Dune, when I was in secondary school. And the Master of Mankind bit, where it's describing their descent to the Infinity Gate and how the journey has been designed so anyone who walks that journey gets to the end and understands the whole purpose of it by the kind of murals on the wall and the tapestries and the paintings and the architecture is all kind of keyed in so that when you get there, you understand what the Emperor's plan is. I loved that in The Master of Mankind. And I was listening to the Dune book where it talks about this Bene Gesserit goes to see Paul Atreides, who's the Emperor, and he makes her walk the length of his palace, which is about the size of London. And by the time she's got to him, she's just reduced to, like, if it wasn't her and she's like the head of the Bene Gesserit order, she'd have been reduced to just a complete shell because she'd have been exhausted. And the clever architecture in the throne room is designed so that it gets slightly smaller towards the end. And it's about like a mile long, the throne room, so that the Emperor looks bigger and bigger and bigger the closer you get to it. So he looks like he's far bigger than he actually is. I really love that kind of writing. And Dembski Bowden did a fantastic job of doing that in Master of Mankind, like those subtleties in the way the palace was designed to make everyone who was traveling that journey sort of come to a very specific conclusion. It's awesome.
Sorry, go on, Dan.
No, you go.
I was going to say that was one thing that Ian on our podcast, Ian Gilmore, he read it, collected, has been collecting all the sort of Horus Heresy stuff, and he's an avid reader of the novels and the books and things. And I feel a bit guilty that I haven't really given them the time, to be honest. I've read a couple of them, but it always seems that you kind of have this preconceived sort of idea of what they're going to be about. And, if you've been in the hobby long enough, 40K to me always seemed so kind of far in the future and so separated from, what we consider to even be like science fiction, and from what I can gather, a lot of these Horus Heresy books really do sort of link, the universe to a bit more realism, like you're saying about flashing back to the first murder, and there's I think I'm probably not giving GW or the not GW necessarily, but just the law as fair a shake as I perhaps should do by not reading these books. I think there's a lot more, and as we said before about narrative informing my modeling hobby, my projects and things like that, and really using books and stuff for reference points for doing things. I'm probably actually missing out on quite a bit. I know there's a lot of really good stuff in those books, and
you've got to be careful though, because I listened to that book and I was on the verge of doing a whole Blood Angel army, and there's only one Blood Angel in it.
It's one of those though that unfortunately, like, it's quite, especially now, it's really daunting if you decide to come back to it now. Like
so picking your first Batman comic.
Yeah. When I started reading them when they started coming out, and then I got to a point and I I couldn't keep up or whatever. And then I've looked to go back a few times, and in the end, I've just ended up like listening to the odd one here or there because it's just massive now. But I definitely think the game, the Horus Heresy game, is made for people like yourself who really want to create the story, because you know, you are essentially going to pay twice as much, if not more, for the same models but more story-ish. That's how it works, you know. Yeah, like I could have a Land Raider in plastic, or I could buy this hunk of resin because that's the one they had. Like, and I'm really like, I'm a bit of a toff with my heresy, and I'm like, no, I'm not having any of those plastic rhinos. Get them out of my sight. I'll only accept Demios pattern. And you know, I spent ages like hacking apart a Land Raider, one of the resin Land Raider armored Proteus, to make a Phobos Land Raider, but in the style of the heresy time.
Right.
Yeah, it's great, man. It is good. But like, I mean, like any series of books with different authors, there's some not great ones, and there's some really good ones.
Isn't there a lot of some of the stuff that ties into? Doesn't Eldrad make an appearance in a few of them? And there's a lot of sort of stuff with that as well, which I find like the pre 40k, like not just, you know, the Marines, but the, you know, wasn't there that massive orc that almost killed the Emperor and Horus put it down, and just, you know, I don't know if I'm right in that saying that, but they're just seeing sort of other races and what they were up to at the time and how they interact, just the whole sort of whole universe.
There isn't. I mean, I've not read by any means. I haven't read them all. There isn't as much with all the other races, for obvious reasons, with it being a heresy. But yeah, Eldrad turns. I love all of that stuff. All that stuff that links, and that's all in there for those, you know, people like us, I suppose, where we've just known it for ages, and it's great to see those little spoilers coming in. Book 5 in Fulgrim. Really emotive. It's really clever. Like the fall of the Emperor's children, and Eldrad's in that, and yeah, it's very good. To the point where the first time I read it, I got to the end and I was just really angry, and I was like, I hate this book. And then like a bit later, it sort of dawned on me that was kind of the point. And I've since listened to it again, and I'm like, yeah. You just want to scream at them, and no, what are you doing?
I want for that's one thing I can't wait for as well, is the full-on Emperor's Children sort of treatment that hopefully they get, you know, a similar style treatment that the Death Guard got, you know, because a plastic demon Fulgrim.
And then
just stick Sigismund on top of
not Sigismund,
Sigvald on top of Marathi, and you're not far off.
Yeah, close.
Need an extra set of arms, don't you?
Well, funny you should say that. We'll talk about it in the
careful. You don't want to mix up your segments, because he'll kick off again. We don't want any of that. You'll notice also that I won't drop this. This will be a theme now for the next 10 or so episodes. Me going.
We do have we do have one last thing to talk about before we move on to the next one, which is the new box games coming out. They've announced little kind of box game collections. Where for 40k we've got the new Space Marine Adventure, Doomsday Countdown, and the Fireteam game. Which have always been quite popular, and it doesn't say anything in the article about them just being America only, which the first couple were, which was disappointing. But
I really liked Space Marine Adventures. I played it a couple of times. It's good.
This one, the models is the Space Marine models are the 3 intercessors that you used to get, like the intercessor sprue with the sergeant, the guy with the Auspex.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
But the cultists are the ones from the Blackstone Fortress expansion. And So that's quite cool that they've got a home again.
Is that the Space Marine Adventures one? Is it?
Yeah, that's the Space Marine Adventures
cool.
one.
Because in the I don't know about the second one where it was the Terminators versus the Orcs, but in the original, the Necrons versus the Marines, the Necrons aren't models; they're just counters.
Oh right,
it's just the Space Marines are models.
Yeah, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. 7 cultists and 3 Marines, and then the other one, the fire team, looks like a sort of cross between Kill Team and Underworlds in a way. And that you get the 10 Necrons and 10 Necron warriors and the 5 intercessors, so assault intercessors. So I'm guessing you get basically one of the warrior sprues and one of the assault intercessor sprues from the Indomitus box in that. Hard to predict what the gameplay is going to be like, but they're nice little kind of ways into the universe, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's what it. I think it even says that at some points. Best of all, if your friends love blah, it'll only be a short hop, skip, and jump into the wonderful worlds of Warhammer.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it is good though. Like we've said this loads of times, but like from our time of working in Games Workshop, one of the things we always cried out for more of was stuff
entry
from
points,
the studio.
Yeah.
To help introduce people, because for the whole time we were working for them, all you had was the box set, the starter box set. That was it.
Oh, and White Dwarf, don't forget the
and White Dwarf. Yes.
Trusty White Dwarf.
Yes, if you don't, if you don't want to spend £150, I'll have £4.50, please.
Yeah,
that's my average sale out the window. Yeah. But no, it's great. It is great to see this a range of stuff.
Yeah.
Coolios. Right, well, before I or Rob get in trouble for talking about things that aren't appropriate to this section, we will move to the mortal realms.
Hi guys, so we are back for the Mortal Realms. Everyone's got a mouthful of drink at the moment, so it's just me leading us in. So we've had a load of cool stuff, I think, come out for the Mortal Realms model-wise in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to start with my favourite, which is the new Savage Orc or Bone Crusher, Bone Splitter, warband for Underworlds.
Yeah, he does look cool.
Oh, and in one model, I now have a whole new section to my destruction army that needs painting. Because you can't just have a warband. It's going to need at least like 50 pals. Oh, I love him.
He's so really good. And it looks like there's going to be a shaman next, I think.
Yeah, but he's just one of the boys as well. I thought he might be the boss character, but he's not. He says it's one of the boys.
What, the shaman or the one with that you're talking about?
The one that I'm talking about. So
yeah,
there might even be a boss leader, unless the shaman's the leader. So that's exciting. I do love Underworlds warbands. They're such an awesome thing for AOS that I really am very surprised that they haven't done something similar for 40k. Like really surprised. Just little kind of model packs with like a unique unit for each army and just rotate their way through them. I just don't understand why they're not doing it, because it is the highlight of the release schedules for me on so many occasions. It's been the Underworlds warbands. They're absolutely bloody brilliant. Yeah. They really are.
It's a really good way for Games Workshop to sort of hint and give us a glimpse into potential.
Yeah.
If someone, obviously I know that they design their miniatures first and they come up with these cool ideas, but like the Kenothi in Beastgrave, the Wood Elf type fawn dudes, and in Warcry, having just like the odd Chaos Dwarf, or the odd Chaos Elf even, in one of the war bands.
Yeah.
Just gives them that opportunity to, they could do if they had a 40k analog to it, then you could look at things like HRUD, or it could be an opportunity to do a unique Vespid character for a Tower warband, and stuff like that, and for designers to get their eye in to see how well it's almost like you can always put it out there and see how well it's received.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
And you think, okay, well, we if the Kanothi are really well received, we could potentially pull the trigger on that, and you've only got to look at the response, like you said, of especially the Grave Lords that they revealed a couple of weeks back. I mean, that's just been the talk of the town, hasn't it? That, along with Cursed City, and that's just got everyone. I mean, as and when they release the new vampire stuff, and we saw not to get too ahead of ourselves, but what's the name of the guard, the skeletons? There's like something watch, or like the new skeletons that they revealed from the Cursed City this week.
Yeah.
They harken back to the sepulchral stalker.
Yes, the
sepulchral guard.
Yeah.
And people were thinking, is that going to be a Tomb King thing, or is that going to be but no, this is what that is. That's a similar sort of design. The same design aesthetic.
Ulfen what?
That's the one.
Yeah.
In time, those little bits come together, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the sepulchral guard, the Ulfen watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's sowing that seed, and it's great. And again, a 40k. That's what I thought we were going to get with Blackstone. Was that? And I know that they did a couple of expansion things. You had the chaos. Is it like a chaos commissar almost, like a
yeah.
Is it the
chaos commissar with a chaos ogre? Yeah.
But you can't.
Yeah. Another thing, you can't, can you not?
No, that's my biggest problem with Blackstone, is that once they eventually take Blackstone off the shelves, you can't get any of the add-on packs other than the most recent at the moment, and all of those models will be gone. But the Underworlds warbands, because they're designed for, they've got rules to use in Age of Sigmar as well as in Underworlds. They're in all of the army ranges, so they've got a lifespan past the game itself. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It gives them such a chance, an opportunity to do the odd and the whimsical that you don't get so much of a chance to do. I feel with Age of Sigmar that it's closer to Warhammer Fantasy Battles roots than 40k is to Rogue Traders roots in some ways, because we're starting to see all of those weird, odd individual models that you got in the early ranges of both of those things. There were so many different weird characters that they weren't just Space Marines or Necrons. There was, even within the guys in power armor, they weren't all Space Marines. There was like a weird guy in the first power armor set that looked like he was in a spacesuit. And who was that guy? What part of the Imperium was that? And if they release warbands, like Underworlds is a really great mechanism for them to do that, where they're looking at that weird and wonderful stuff that you used to get in the earlier stuff, and now it's a perfect chance for them to do it at 40k. Like, I went absolutely mental when they released what's he called? The big guy, the sort of the centaur-like thing. And what's he called? My brain's gone completely blank.
Gorgon?
No, for 40k in Blackstone Fortress. The Zote.
Just a minute. In case it has not escaped anybody's notice, what are you talking about now in the Mortal Realms? 40k?
Right. But when they released that, shush now.
What is going on? This is just like the Ben show. Do what I like. I should talk about this.
When they released that, it was the same sort of thing as Underworlds for me. It was, you're looking at those things around the edges.
They should have done. I mean, the stuff they released for Kill Team Rogue Trader and the stuff that they did for Blackstone Fortress should have been that window into the more obscure things. You know, seeing is it like that Rogue Trader miniature where she's reloading a revolver and it's a little servo skulls dropping the round into it. Just like some of the miniatures that they released for that are just so cool. And you can just do these one-off things where, you know, again, it's almost like a, you know, you're taking the gauging the response of the community around these things, and it makes sense from so many different angles, from just an opportunity for designers to explore different design space. You know, it's a nostalgia hit, but it's also quite a good marketing tool for them as a company to actually put feelers out there. And like you said, I know we're in a time where, you know, perhaps companies need to be a bit more frugal with how they, you know, sort of distribute their sort of finances and stuff, and what projects they do and what they don't, obviously given what we're going through. But at the same time, it just makes sense because it's more of a, you know, going back to what you guys said about, you know, working in Games Workshop, how many more sales would you have done, not just on the product itself, but on as a more of a link to bigger things, if you had things like Underworlds and Blackstone when you guys were working in Games Workshop, you know, 10, 15 years ago.
Absolutely.
You know, having those, it's just other revenue streams, isn't it? And it ticks so many boxes as far as what we would want as hobbyists. Like you said, it's just bonkers that they haven't really sort of explored more of that, really.
And it's a price point for
anyway, vampires.
Yeah, it's another entry point below a start collecting box, to the point where I'd almost have like the Age of Sigmar shelf and then all of those Underworld warbands next to it, so that people can come in and go, what's that? And it's only like 18 quid and you've got yourself a handful of models. And I love them. They are the highlight for me in so many ways. And the last couple of weeks just showcase it. I mean, we've just had the up for pre-order the new the Chaos Warband, Zrog's Marauders or something, the Chaos Warriors one with the two sisters in it, which are also in that in one of the new box games. So one of the box games coming out is called Bladeborn, which looks like a bit of a cross between Underworlds and Warcry, and that's got the old kind of Untamed Beasts in, and it's also got the new Kragra's Ravagers in it. So and then those coming out again just reminds me of how they're awesome. The Bone Splitter's awesome. The Vampires are awesome. The Lizardmen are awesome. It's overwhelming awesome. All coming just from Underworlds models. And then you throw in the Cursed City, and like you said, those skeletons. Oh my God.
One of the things I love about those is that they actually for the first time, I think, look at the way their armor is on them. It looks like it's just like sat down onto down on the bones, because obviously it's far too big for just a skeleton. And I think that is just brilliant, really, really cool. And it's going back to what we were saying, or what I was saying in between the segments, like lots of, I say lots, you know, the internet is always you see all the negative stuff, but you still see comments about loss of the grimdark factor, I suppose. And then you read things like this captain, and it says he joined the treacherous purge of Ulfan Khan's nobility. This did not go down well with his fellow officers, who bound him hand and foot, threw him in a sewer pit to be eaten by corpse rats. His skeleton was then raised as a death rattle officer to lead the Ulfan Watch, although he is now little more than a rotting automaton. Well, that's rather jolly, I think.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
So, it's
it's like a Disney movie, isn't it?
Yeah, it is practically.
No, I think I think the move, with GW, not to go off too much of a tangent, but for them to distinguish AOS as its own kind of property away from the old world. Speaking of which, quickly before we move away from the old world, have you seen the new trailer for Total War 3 with the Ice Queen versus the Bloodthirster? That's amazing. But for them to do that, they've had to push it into a bit more sort of high fantasy, and I think something like the Cursed City just brings a frame of reference in regards to everyday life within the mortal realms, as opposed to these just talking about the realms, in their totality, as it were. It grounds it a little bit more, and going back to those kind of stories, the little sidebars where it just explains little things like that, just helps so much. And what people forget is that AOS has only had 5 years of this, whereas Warhammer previously had 35 years of history and world building before they blew it all up in the end times. So I think just giving it a bit of a chance to actually develop its own kind of identity, but having these little sort of add-ons and box games and things really do help with that sort of stuff, because it just starts having which opens different doors within the world for you to look through and experience different things, I guess.
Warcry is
the stories that go along with it.
Warcry is the best thing to happen to Chaos since the original 2 Chaos books. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned. And maybe the Storm of Chaos is an interim, but background-wise, those two original Chaos books were on my shelf, but I could never remember the name of them. The Realm of Chaos.
Lost and the Damned is one of
them. Slaves to Darkness.
My two most cherished bits of literature, those 2 books. I think they're absolutely fun. There's one from the Lost and the Damned, which was the Nurgle and Tzeentch book, the second one of the 2, one with the Nurgle followers on the cover. There's a 1-page story, I think it might be 2 pages or 1 page, about a gardener. Do you remember that story about his son that he kept down a well?
Yeah,
and it was told from the son's point of view as the son descended into becoming a chaos spawn, and it's probably one of the most sort of evocative bits. I used to love those books. I used to love the whole warband system in Warhammer, and that's what got me into conversions, because doing all the different stuff, and the White Dwarfs at the time with all the the studio sort of warbands they've done. And I don't know why. I think I should like Warcry more than I actually do because of sort of that. But I just haven't had the time to kind of get into it. I think it's because I just hadn't had the opportunity to play it. I think if I was to play it, I'd probably sort of get a bit more excited about it. But
it's great fun to play. But it's like I think we have this conversation every episode. So much of it is so good to play. And there is only so much time, I
think that the weight of Warcry and Age of Sigmar for me is all of those different incarnations of chaos. We've broken out of this idea that you could look at a warband and very clearly look at it and go, "Oh, that's Slannesh, that's Nurgle, that's Tzeentch, and that's Khorne." Some of those could be either or both, or all 4, or 2, or one of them, that you don't know because it's not all immediately obvious. And that just, for me, that makes chaos so much more interesting. Like looking at how the mortal cults that would be dotted around the mortal realms would appear to, on the day-to-day streets, because some of those guys could walk through the streets of a city and you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know what was going on underneath. I mean, the guys who peel their faces off and then attach them to their belts, I think you'd have a fairly good idea that there was something dodgy going on there. But, some of the others perhaps not. I think they're great. I think they're really, really good. And I think it's a solid kind of part of Age of Sigmar.
So what? Oh, so go on, Dan.
No, that's all right.
I was going to say, what everyone excited about the imminent release of the Dark God of Excess and all his cronies.
That was exactly what I was going to ask you. So, what you thought of that? Because yes, I tell you what though, this might not be the case for yourself and Ben, but like I love the new miniatures and I love the idea of collecting them, but I'm not. I do enjoy painting now more than I ever have really, but it isn't. Collecting is my main thing, having collections of stuff. So it's definitely a means to an end rather than a pure enjoyment in itself. So whenever I'm painting, I'm always thinking about what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing, rather than getting involved in that thing. And so when I saw that flipping great dude, like the Xerxes lookalike guy, I'm like, I'd love to have that on the shelf, but I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm like, oh my God. And the thought of how long and how many hours of investment it would take to paint that, I'm just like, oh, damn it. But it is so lovely. I love them. I do love them. But they're a lot of detail. I feel anyway that they're a painter's army to look at them.
Yeah, I think one thing, or a couple of things, is I think because of the different how many different textures there are in the models. There's a lot of cloth. There's obviously a lot of skin. There's a lot of armor. I think they probably lend themselves quite well to contrast. Obviously, 'cause they're quite a vivid army as well. So I think that that might be a way to go for some collectors that just, like you said, just want to sort of get them on the table or get them in the display cases and just have them as part of their collection. I mean, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but I was wondering for some time, where they'd go with the design aesthetic with Slannesh, when the new sort of stuff was announced. And obviously, we know what the old design aesthetic was, and it probably doesn't lend itself very much to the type of demographic that GW, really want to sort of try and target. Because, us guys that are, as Ben alluded to earlier, that are perhaps on the verge of suffering midlife crises, we're going to buy the stuff anyway. It's all about the newer customers, and certainly the older Slannesh aesthetic probably didn't lend itself too well to be little Johnny going in there with.
I think we have moved away from. I think they've embraced some of the earlier aesthetic a lot more. Like there was a period where, and we did talk about this in the last episode or the one before, there was a period where they didn't seem to have that sinister, more physicality about them that the earlier Slannesh stuff did have. I think that some of the warriors now look brutal. They look like they could do damage to you. They look terrifying. Whereas the demonettes are terrifying, but in a different way. But they've now kind of added a more physicality into it. And I really like that shift in aesthetic. It does remind me more of the Slaves to Darkness artwork, where you've got like a guy with massive plates with spikes and a honking great mace, and he's got like the leopard pelt fur. And there was always that kind of real physical element to them that I think drifted away more towards the hedonism sort of aesthetic. And now we've come back in with Immortals. And I think what's cool in the army is that you've got that kind of lithe, serpentine almost look with the demons, and then you've got that real like physical, solid look from the mortal units is coming through. Yeah. I quite like that, actually. I really like that. So, because at the end of the day, you can't win a fight without having an ability to fight. That's the bottom line.
No, true.
You either look graceful like a witch elf, where that's going to do damage, or you look like you're going to clout someone's head off with a stick, which is what the new Slannesh. So I really like it. I really like the shift, and I do feel like it's gone. It's almost like they've got the Slaves to Darkness book open and gone, oh, let's do that model, and that because it just feels like that to me.
Yeah, I think that it was also. There's obviously as Dan said, there's obviously like almost like a 300 kind of Persian influence, with the clothing, especially of the sort of the marauder style, the more basic archers and things, and I really do like the idea of excess not just being sexualized, but it's like gluttony and greed and things like that, and having a guy who has got a tentacle there hanging out, holding a little hanky that he's obviously used to wipe his mouth from whatever his little chaos halfling, by the way, on the little altar. He's there serving him up his grub. I just that sort of shift to to explore different aspects of excess as well, I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really do like the range. And I think, Sigvald, the model itself, is a triumph. There's a part of my Slannesh army, obviously going back to the AOS army that I was doing, each of there was going to be Archaon, and then there was going to be a Khorne contingent, a Tzeentch contingent, a Nurgle contingent, and a Slannesh contingent, each of which were going to have a greater demon. That greater demon was going to be a conversion of one of the old Realms of Chaos heroes for that god. So the Tzeentch one is going to be used as Kairos, but it's Egrim Van Horseman on his two-headed Chaos Dragon. The Khorne one is going to be a conversion of Arbor the Undefeated, the Khorne champion riding the big flesh hound. The Nurgle one is going to be Valnir the Reaper, which is the big hooded guy, kind of like almost a Warhammer version of Mortarion in a way. But he's going to be he's in the fluff. He had this big throne that he used to sit on, and he was sort of almost a demon prince-esque thing. So I've got a Mortarion that I'm going to convert to be sat on the Majorath throne as like a big palanquin to be carried into battle. But the Slannesh one is going to be T'Challa, the Denied One, which is the old high elf princess with the 6 arms with the snake body. So I was thinking of, and this is the other thing, I'm going to probably use the lower part of Marathi to do that, and the upper body of Keeper of Secrets. And I was thinking of, there's not a lot of artwork for her, but her top half is quite heavily armoured, and she's probably going to be a little bit bigger than Sigvald, the new Sigvald model. There's a lot of armour elements on stuff like the exalted steeds and stuff on the new models. So there's a lot of design cues that I could perhaps sculpt the armour from scratch onto that miniature. But I know as soon as I do that miniature, they'll release Fulgrim. And I think I could have used armour parts from, there's probably going to be a lot more opportunity to use bits off of a Fulgrim miniature for her. But yeah, no, I really like the idea of a, Slannesh Mortals range. And I was always a hope in the back of my head that, that's why we didn't get them when they redid the Slannesh range last year or the year before, was because they were holding back for a separate Mortals of Slannesh range. Yeah. And there was no clues there's no clues out there to suggest that that's what they were going to do. It was just a sort of a hope of mine. And luckily it's been realised, and, they're better than I could possibly imagine. The only bad thing is they're going to probably release vampires soon as well, and I'm going to want to do them. And I want a full-blown vampire army. But yeah, we'll see.
I think what's really awesome right now is that, I'm really excited. There's so much great stuff going on with the fantasy stuff, but for the old world and for Mortal Realms, and actually the fact that they're developing the old world game, and you've got Total War, and I've just started tinkering around with the Warhammer Fantasy Battle 4th edition roleplay as well. So you've got all this awesome for the Warhammer world, and even more awesome that can be explored even more for the Mortal Realms. I think there's so much space for both. I love it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is, and it's always worth remembering that, for example, the Slaves to Darkness books, those are background for Age of Sigmar too. You know, that's always worth remembering.
Yeah, I mean, there's such I mean, like I said, doing using those characters as inspiration for these new conversions, that was always something. There's bits in obviously you guys have read the End Times books, sort of cover to cover review.
No,
there's little mentions of a lot of these characters. But yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of sort of Easter eggs and hints, and again, there's so much for them to draw upon. I just think it's all awesome. So I want to get I want to get excited about the hobby again. I want to go and do all these cool armies.
Talking about get excited about the hobby, should we move on to the community section and have a look at some incredible hobby?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's.
Hail, glorious community. Thank you for getting all the way to here. Clearly, because you're listening to Rob and generally tuning out Ben and enjoying me as well, I expect. But there we are. So it is shout out time. Woo! Before we move on to, I've completely forgotten today that we don't actually record the video elements, or we don't put them up, because I've done stupid faces. I've been flinging around Terry's chocolate orange. We've been enjoying Rob's dinosaurs, but no one's going to see it. It's just us, special for us.
We have to get good backgrounds and start doing YouTube recordings.
Yeah. I've got a few that I keep playing around with. I've got one at the moment, which is like a ye olde worldy town that I use when I'm doing the Zoom of the Warhammer Fantasy role play.
That's cool.
But anyway, where was I even going with that? Oh, we were talking about shout outs. Yeah. So shout outs. Ben,
you ready?
You always like a bit of shouting out. Look, here we go. Look.
Yeah. No one can see the background, Dan.
No, I know, but I'm happy now because I'm now back in Ubersreich. I think it's
Mordheim.
Yeah. Right. It's Go on then, shouting out.
So, the first one I'd like to shout out is it's actually quite in keeping with what we've just been discussing, which is demons, or chaos. It's a chap called Gravehammer on Instagram, and the account is grave.hammer, and he's been doing a monochrome sort of demon army with pink accent, and he's got some really cool YouTube videos on how he's done that free to access and superb. And I love the look of the army, and he's done blue horrors, he's done the floating discs and all sorts of stuff for the army, and then the flamers look absolutely superb in the color scheme. But what I like is even the complicated models in the monochrome with that pink accent just look fantastic. And of course, it's not the only thing on his account. There's Blood Angels. Thank you, darling. There's Blood Angels on there too. There's scenery. There's Necrons. There's all sorts on there, and it's a kind of a grimdark account, I suppose. It's fantastic. Love it. He does his I'm trying to find them, Sylvaneth, in a very similar color scheme, sort of fairly monochrome, but with bright blue weapons. Works great too. So fantastic account, that one. You guys had a chance to bring him up?
I really like the base that he's done on the Nurgle guy, the sort of luminescent, luminous green.
Yeah. I struggled to get that one.
I couldn't get that out then.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, I'm going through some of his Nighthaunt stuff as well that he's got on there, which obviously again the paint style really lends itself well to.
Yeah,
that kind of haunted, kind of muted scheme with sort of glowing accents is actually a really cool conversion that he's done from Saint Celestine as well.
Yeah.
There's like a vampire kind of looking girl, and yeah, some really, really cool stuff. And I think he's done it. He's obviously knows what he's doing, but he's chosen a lot of armies and miniatures that lend. Sometimes you can see that kind of painting style just done to armies just randomly, where I think with him it's the models suit the aesthetic as well as the paint job, if that makes sense. He's chosen quite, like with the Nighthaunt and demons, you'd imagine them looking like that anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks really
the
good.
Chariot is really the black coach standing is really nice with the horses from the Endless Spell, I think, and then that's very nice. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, and he's mixed in the three Banshee ladies and the jailer and the corpse cart to make. Yeah, it's fab, isn't it?
Oh, his
really
Necrons. Good. Oh,
yeah.
Anyway, come on.
I think I originally picked him up because of the Necrons. To be honest, yeah, superb. Right, so he's a great little one. The next one is Anfarius, also on Instagram. So basically Alfarius, but with an N. I absolutely just in awe of this guy's sculpting. I can't really get over how good his sculpting is. I first picked up on him when he did the sculpt of the Dark Angel chapter master Azrael for Primaris scale, and it's just perfect. I don't think there's another word to use to describe it. It's absolutely superb. And then he went ahead and topped it with the best Chaos Lord conversion I've ever seen. Frankly, it's just incredible. Based on Abaddon, and it's full of so much energy. He must have completely changed every single part of Abaddon to put together that pose. It may as well be a different model. It's superb, and one of his mates has painted that up and put them with his rather splendid looking Khorne Terminators. And the guy's painted it. It's called Paint Spill Curse, and he's done a fab job. And if you want to see it finished and painted, you can go and see that chap too. And he's now currently working on something which I desperately wish he was doing for me, because he's sculpting Ulrich the Slayer, and it's just so good. There's a Primaris, so he's put the helmet on him, and he's re-sculpted his belt onto a Primaris.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I like his Primaris Seth.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. There's one model that he's done. It's the he sort of brought into present day is the Inquisitor in Terminator armor with the bionic leg.
Oh yeah.
Which was one of my favourite sort of characters from back in the day. But he looks fab as well. He's done a sort of modern day recreation of that.
Yeah.
So it's all really got a really clean green stuff work, really precise.
Really. That's good. The thing I can't get over, actually, Rob, is how clean it is. I mean, I don't do a lot of sculpting, but I do a fair bit, enough to know that getting like the belt on Ulrich the Slayer that he's done with all the kind of the stepped wings and then the rim on the belt and the little kind of loop. It looks like it's been done on a computer. And the teeth. And I'm just looking at it thinking, how have you managed to get it that smooth? How is there no debris at all? There's no... It's just brilliant. It's just brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I can sort of think about how it's done in some ways. There is a possibility he's done each individual wing, smoothed it out perfectly, cleaned it up, let it dry, and then done the next bit, and then the next bit, and then the next bit. But that would take you... Yeah, that would take you like a fortnight to do to do that one little bit of detail. So I can't believe that it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a lot of there's quite a few sort of step by step bits that he's done on the there's a couple of videos. So it does that. It's actually quite good because I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but having, I'm a bit of a bugger for it because, but having someone go like, ta-da, this is what I've done. It's the completely finished model. Whereas actually showing a bit more sort of step by step on how they've done it, again, lends itself, going back to what we said about, how learning a technique from someone rather than just seeing the finished product.
Yeah.
Just gives you that confidence in being able to go out there and do it yourself. So yeah, seeing what sort of done in stages like that does kind of think, well, because if you took something like that and tried to, or as if you took something like that and tried to sculpt it all from scratch, with all the green stuff all in one go, you'd never do it. And it's the same with doing the Carnosaur for the Exodite stuff. It was a case of doing one section, leaving it to cure, coming back to it the next day, doing another section.
Yeah.
But that's when you have different, if you have two or three kind of things that you're doing at the same time, then it's okay because whilst one thing's curing, you can switch and rotate it through. So, but no, that's some of the green stuff work I've seen outside of GW studio stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah. Phenomenal.
That corn lord as well is something else. Really good.
So going from him onto an account which I wanted to share, because if I could get my elves to look like this, I'd be a very happy man, because it's kind of how in my head the painting style is very much how I'm envisaging I'll eventually try and do my high elf army. The account is called Make Elves Great Again, which is awesome. And I think there's just a few standouts on here. So he's done like a diorama where he's basically sculpted using the metal bits and a few other bits, 4 of the most dynamic swordmasters I've ever seen, or 5 of them, and an Eltharion the Grim, like a redo of Eltharion the Blind. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful work. And more recently, he's done the new Underworlds Lumineth warband and altered them a bit. And I particularly like what he's done with the wizard. So he's changed the arms to look like he's creating a spell and filled that kind of space with a different color to the rest of the model. So it looks like he's generating light in that area. And I really love it. Really love it.
Oh my goodness. I've just found the diorama. Oh my God. Look at that wave thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah. And further down, not to skip all the other amazing work on it, but the reason I am showing it is because of his elves. If you go down to just above where he's done some of the sculpting, or shown the sculpting of how he did the swordsman, he's got a chap, like a Loth and Seaguard alternative, done in really dark colours.
Mm.
But what I like about it is it is very grimdark in a lot of ways, and it is very dirty in a lot of ways. But they still look like elves. They still look really clean, and they still look really sort of elf-like. That sounds stupid, but I think it's a really difficult balance to get.
It's interesting because I was talking to Chris recently. I think it was, and about Lumineth and how you would do them in a grim style. And this guy, I'm going to send him these pictures.
Yeah, I'm going to be trying to replicate this kind of look for the for my Lumineth. Interesting that there's a post halfway down where he sort of shows how he's increased the height of
I saw that.
The Loth and Seaguard, which is quite interesting.
Mm.
Bringing the hide back to the elves. Very good. So that's him. Really like that. And the last one, just a sort of War of the Beard it up, is a account called Lutherian99, who's done like some of the best dwarves I've ever seen, frankly. Not to put too fine a point on it. I mean, it's a fantastic account full of awesome stuff, but the thing that stuck out most recently for me is the dwarfs. And that's why I'm kind of bringing them up today. He uses a lot of yellow and black together. In fact, it's this sort of Stormcaster in that colour too. Mate, these dwarves are so good. Love the unit symbols on their stuff. Really cool.
Mm.
Really cool. And yellow and grey together. It's an interesting combination. I quite like it. But yeah. So that's my 4 shout-outs.
Sorry, I'm lost in that one.
Yeah.
I'm totally lost in that one.
Did you see the Gotrek conversion?
Yeah, lovely.
Holding the pistol.
Yeah.
Ace, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ace. Really, really good. Love the weathered yellow.
Very cool.
Rob, did you have anyone that you particularly wanted to?
Well, there was a guy. I thought I'd mention it. There was a gentleman called Ash McEwen on Twitter. He's at Ash_McEwen, McEwan, and he's done. He's painted up some mega gargants, but in like a completely cell shaded style. So like I say cell shaded, like a cartoon, a flat cartoon style,
like Scanner Darkly.
I sent you guys that kind of look, and they just until you actually when you look at one like flat, you just look at a picture of one, it just does look 2D, but then he's got a couple of videos with them rotating. I just think that it's a really interesting take on them. I just thought they were really cool.
It's a really interesting way of painting, isn't it? It's really difficult to get your head round. It's like
you have to kind of almost sort of switch off how you'd normally go about painting something, and just. I mean that looks like a picture.
Yeah, it does. I was just thinking that.
But that's actually is it's a model he's painted, which is crazy. Yeah, really cool.
I wonder what it looks like in person. Where do you?
I mean that one there. That's the full thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what? I am such a Wally. I know, like that's just random to come out with. I'm flicking through, no word of a line. I'm going, well, where are these gargants? Where are these gargants? I'm looking for orc gargants, like the epic gargants, completely missing the fact that you're talking about this giant. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I would have been there for ages. I was going back and back and back. I was like, what's going on here? But yeah, I get it now. Dear me. Yeah, that's they are nice.
I just thought they're really cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's my shout
That's
out.
a sort of it's almost like a new. I haven't seen it before, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. That kind of cell shading, or that style it's called. It'd be interesting to try it, because I'm sure there's things that you could learn from that you could apply to all other aspects of your painting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost in the same way as understanding how you do non-metal metallics is understanding how you do everything. If you see it going with that, because I think once you understand how you make a surface look like a surface, and where you put the paint to make that, those volumes look like they should do, then you can apply that across all your painting. I wonder with that, it's the same thing. Once you've understood how you achieve that look, you unlock how you would do other things too.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously with that type of style, there's very sort of defined lines between completely different would be to blend those areas. So if you look at it, you've got bits on the model that obviously with it as that cartoony look, there isn't any kind of blending between. It's like colouring line art for a comic. Obviously, when you see comic colouring, it's a very similar type of style, where the differences between the colours and the placement is quite harsh, and there isn't much. It depends on the stock style, but more often than not, there isn't any blending.
So pop art, isn't it? That's what it's called. Pop art. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Roy Lichtenstein.
And the key thing that you'd be able to sort of take from that type of style to things like non-metallic metal, and it's the thing that I struggled with initially, is placement of where your lowlights and your highlights are. There's a lot of non-metallic metal painters out there that will block in, like they'll block in like that cut, the stripe of darkness, and then you literally have your lines of colours going up, so you get the placement right, and then you blend.
Yep.
So it could help with techniques like that. I mean, obviously, people that are well in advance of stuff like non-metallic metal, people like Tommy will just that bit goes there and that bit goes there, and before you know it, he's got a masterpiece in his hand. But for us mere mortals, being able to get if you paint something in that style and you get the shadows in the wrong place or the highlights in the wrong place, it just doesn't look right. But understanding understanding placement lends itself to any kind of style, really, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I get to talk about the hobby group, 2P's hobby group, and the competition. So we've had our first month now, January, and we started off nice and simple. So we're drawing on the hobby bingo that was in the back of White Dwarf, and the first one was just paint any model, really, and we had 26 entries, which is, I think, the best one we've had. So thank you, that was really awesome. Really appreciate that. So we actually had joint winners for it. So we had a pretty awesome Night Relictor by Ian Craig. So this guy was done in the, I think it's Celestial Vindicators looking color scheme, sort of a bluey purpley color. Really, really cool. And a bear, Ben, you'll like it, bear beardy head, which was good. Captures a nice bit of atmosphere. So really, really like that. And then also we had Rob Davis and his Slave Ogren from Necromunda, from the new gang.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, mate. That just, it got me thinking about, was it when we were talking to James and we were talking about like Necromunda and like punk and the crossover and the cyberpunk stuff, and it's just really cool. I just really love the colours. Really love the colours.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. And if you're not part of the Facebook group, by the way, for this, we did do posts with a picture of all of the entries on Instagram and on Twitter.
So they're very little on Instagram. I was squeezing them all in to show them all. But there are links on there into the hobby group, and anybody's welcome. So it's quite cool, quite active, which is nice.
And chilled out.
Yeah, we try and be chilled out. We try not to get angry and upset about certain things. But so this month, so February, as was announced in the last cast, is a unit of 2 or more models. So Ben rolled the dice, and it is fated that units of 2 or more models shall be painted this month. So again, anything you like. I went and found some pictures of some fire-breathing troll bloods from the Hordes game, just to show that we will accept non-Games Workshop things without going around people's houses with a 2-handed sword and laying into them. So I just wanted to show an open feeling.
They don't have to be game legal units.
What kind of rule is that? What? So really, it's not a unit of 2 or more models. It's just any 2 models or more.
If you want to. Yeah.
All right then. Okay. Let's just go really out there. Bake a cake.
All right. Okay.
No good. There are no rules, but you know.
do it like that then. Okay. Say it's a game. It has to be game legal.
I'm quite up for a cake. I'm not going to lie. We're going to do that. We're going to have a cake month, I think.
We have to have a cake month.
Yeah, we do now. Get Clint involved.
Yes.
I don't know if you had the pleasure of listening to the episodes, Rob, where we did like a dessert review alongside Heralds of War podcast. It just got a bit strange, but it concluded with Clint sent us a bunch Tim Tams. That's what got it started, wasn't it? It was Tim Tams. He bought a load of Tim Tams over, and then I sent him a box of 24 Tunnocks tea cakes, which was quite expensive to ship to Australia, actually. But hey-ho. Anyway, that's gone very tangent. So, yeah, unit of 2 models or a cake. And the closing date is the 28th of February. I have put an announcement post and pinned it at the top. It's still January, you see, so I'm quite engaged. By probably March, April, Ben will be reminding me. And certainly by August, he'll be doing it. But right now, I have pinned an announcement post to the top of the page. So that's where you can go and post up your entries or your work in progresses and all the rest of it on there.
Cool.
Aces. Now, when any news at all on when Pro Painted podcast might reappear, dude? How's he getting on with his stuff? I know we were talking about it.
Yeah, so we are looking. There was a little bit of a rumbling about getting back on track. I know Ian's become a new dad recently, so again his sort of schedules are a bit hit and miss. And obviously Matt's sort of getting back on his feet after what happened. But yeah, I think we're looking at perhaps moving to Discord.
Okay.
Rather than just iTunes and doing it that way, so perhaps have some more video content as well. Obviously, with it being a mainly a hobby kind of podcast, it does lend itself to perhaps having a bit more of visual content as well as just us rambling on for a couple of hours. So, yeah, I think I think he's looking into that. So maybe see us back in the next month or so. Maybe.
Oh, good.
New format. So yeah, keep an eye out.
Awesome. That'd be good. You've got to keep the same theme music though, whatever you do. Somehow you've got to mix it in there.
I got into gunship on the back of your podcast, and
yeah, so did I actually. Yeah.
It's my son's favourite band now. Actually, so, yeah, he absolutely flipping loves gunship. Yep.
Yeah, they're very cool.
They are cool. Does Matt know them or something?
No. Yeah, just something that he's very much into his kind of synthwave and that kind of sound. So yeah, it was just something that we kind of latched onto. So
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's good. Good stuff.
Cool. As usual, at the end of the community section, shout out to all the stores. Please, guys, I say it every time, but if there is a particular store that you would like to game in again when lockdown goes away, or used to game in, please support it. So, the likes of your Curtain Games, lot of business is done by the events, and obviously they can't do those right now. So, really important to try and support those guys with your
or any of your local
with your money.
stores.
Well, yeah, any not but the point being, the ones that you can go to and play games, etc. So,
because not to put too fine a point on it, if you don't support them, they ain't going to be there when we get back.
Nope, absolutely. Okay, I think all that remains is to go into the wild places.
We got to work out whether or not we'll get sued through our noses for using the Star Wars theme tune somewhere in the next section, because it's going to come up enough, isn't it?
I'm sat on a desk on a Star Destroyer,
and I can see
now. I'm fine. Okay, right, guys, we are going into the wilds.
Hi guys, and welcome to Into the Wilds, where we're almost certainly going to talk about Star Wars, because I cut Dan off earlier. So should we
don't even know what Star Wars is. Well, I did cover quite a bit of what I wanted to say in the hobby desk, but essentially, despite my absolute guarantee that I wasn't going to collect this game, because I don't need another game in a sci-fi universe, I am now collecting this game. So Star Wars Legion, Fantasy Flight Games, moving over to be sort of governed by Atomic Mass Games, which is Asmodee's sort of miniatures arm, as it were, that currently deals with the Marvel game. So they're going to add in on that. So, and at the moment, essentially what's going on, Chris has got the starter set, the core set, and then I'm buying units that are not in that set, but for both sides, so that when eventually lockdown lifts, we'll have some interesting forces to play with. But if I get these two units done that I'm working on, so I've got some Death Troopers, which look ace. I really like them. And some commandos. So if I get those done, then next month I want to buy one each of the support weapons to go with the dudes I mentioned I printed out. And if I get all that done, I probably buy my own starter set then. Because it's a really good way to get a load of models. But the game, I was saying before you cut me off ages ago, that it's all sort of centers. The squad stuff is around the squad leader, so like all the movement and whether you're affected by the movement and what cover you get, etc. You do it all by the squad leader, and then the other guys just move around in coherency with him, which is quite cool. Quite cool way of doing it. As usual with Fantasy Flight, 357 million different cards of all different shapes and sizes, boxes and boxes of counters, but I do love a good sort of counters. This is my you won't be able to see this obviously, but you guys will. I've got this bloody background on so you can't see it. Hang on a minute. I've basically got a box that an organisey box. There we go. Let's turn that off. Just because obviously you've got to see my box of counters for
Oh, nice.
That's for Armada, Star Wars Armada, the ship game. I had two boxes of them for X-Wing, but I got rid of that stuff because I just wasn't using it. Wish I hadn't now, but Ben will just have a wry smile about that. Oh, yeah. Look! X-Wing stuff, yeah.
I've never played it, and I bought a load of the stuff, and I want to get rid of it. So if you know anyone into X-Wing, then let me know.
Dan?
I can see where this is going. I've just told mine. Well, I didn't just sell it. I sold it ages ago. I'm also collecting, if you look behind me up here, I've got a Millennium Falcon in Lego and a TIE Fighter. And in the middle is an X-Wing now, which actually I'm going to have to put a video on the podcast somewhere. Ben, you can do it. You can sort it. Hang on, I can't get my headphones. Hang on. Right. Sorry, I'm just... Right, hang on. I got to go and get it. What's that now?
It's the Millennium Falcon. X-Wing Millennium Falcon.
What, in the box?
Yeah.
Yeah. Loads of B-Wings and A-Wings and TIE Interceptors and God knows what else.
Watch this.
Oh, nice.
Oh. I love it. Oh, yeah. So Harriet went out the other day with Hannah to take her for a walk so the boys could do Lego, because we were just finishing off building this. And she came home and Joshua had this and was running around the house, and I had the TIE Fighter and was chasing him going, pew, 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 just running around the house. I was like, yeah, this is why you have children, because it was awesome.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, I love it. So, yeah, I haven't played the game yet. The miniatures aren't as crisp as the sort of stuff you get from Games Workshop. Still quite pricey, to be fair. It's premium stuff, Fantasy Flight stuff. The card stock's really, really good quality, etc., etc. So it does come, and obviously it's got the Star Wars name, so it isn't cheap. I think these Commandos were they about 20 quid, £22? So there's 7 of them. Interesting, different type of plastic, but they come. I think there are a couple. I think Chris has got 1 or 2 that come on a sprue, like traditional, but these don't. They just come in a little bag, in bits, and you just slot them all together, clean them up and slot them all together. So
did they have mold lines?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
They did have mold lines. They've been molded. They've not been printed.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the mold, not too bad. Chris had some awful mold lines on his, but mine weren't too bad. So, yeah, just enjoying that for now as another thing to be doing. Like I said earlier, it's just quite interesting because it's not corn, so it's doing something different.
Yeah, it is, and it's always nice to paint something that. I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about right at the start of this episode about inspiration, and for a lot of people, they paint models to play games. For a lot of people, they paint models just because a single model has captured their imagination. But it is really cool to be able to paint models inspired by a TV show, something that you've actually seen.
Yeah, it's a bit like Lord of the Rings, really, and it's a bit like why I can't wait until we start seeing some real proper 40k stuff, because you just go and get excited, and then it's like I said earlier, the theme song comes on, and you just start buying up Legion stuff.
That's going to be.
Sorry, go on. You go.
I was just quickly going to say that's going to be what Games Workshop needs to do, is develop a really catchy theme tune.
Yeah, just trying to think.
Grim, 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 grim.
Have you? I mean, with that, do you think? Because I mean, it was with the X-Wing stuff. I think I was going through a bit of a. Sometimes you go through these sort of couple of month lulls where you don't really want to. You perhaps so in deep with the project that I certainly. I don't know if you're the same, but I'll go through like maybe a month or 2 of a lull where I don't really want to do any hobby. That and I kind of a bit of a palate cleanser, perhaps looking at other things. Obviously, stuff like Star Wars has got a rich history to it, and there are other things, the Marvel Crisis Protocol game as well, and there's other there's like the Batman stuff as well, and all that other kind of thing. what do you think stops those properties with just as as big or as sort of diverse sort of history and lore to them? What do you think stops them from perhaps being the same scale as something, getting to as big as something like Warhammer or Age of Sigmar?
I think it's the pedigree of the people that are involved in it and what people get into those things for. So there's some fantastic miniatures creators out there that aren't Games Workshop. But at the same time, Games Workshop has got that pedigree. It's got 50 years almost now, hasn't it? Perhaps 1980 something. So it's as old as me. Yes, so 38 years of background and imagery that is their own, and has had some of the best miniature sculptors in the world working on their stuff. And it's had evolutions and iterations, and I think the reason why it is popular is because it's slightly different from all those other things, but draws on all those other things, like Dune, like Aliens, like Star Wars to a degree. It all gets pulled in, and bits of it used to create those worlds. And I think why have people like Star Wars and that not done miniatures games? I think the answer is really simply that miniature gaming is now more popular than it ever has been, and we almost forget that sometimes, just how popular 40k is. I mean, Games Workshop was the best performing company in Britain for the last year, I think, maybe 2 years, which is incredible. By some metrics, there's plenty of different metrics, but by some metrics, it's been the best performing company. And we're in a kind of period of time where miniature gaming is becoming more accessible, less clicky, more open to so many different people that you probably will eventually see games for all of those things. But my view is that they owe it to Games Workshop. If those games ever became a real thing, things like Star Wars Legions, that is, as far as I'm concerned, owes what it has got, the sort of success it's having, straight out the back door. And in many ways to Games Workshop, because they're kind of the granddaddy of sci-fi and fantasy miniature games. And that's a personal opinion, and people will probably have different views on it, but they're the ones with a shop in every city practically in Britain, and they've been sort of slowly but surely building up that fan base, and now we're passing it down to our kids, and our kids will pick up the torch. And we've never been in a better kind of world to spread the sort of excitement about it. When I was a kid, having access to miniature painting tutorials like we have now would have been a dream. Even just sort of the really basic stuff that Games Workshop pumps out on how to do their models in a really simple way, from that up to like the damn near 12-hour, how to paint Ragnar Blackmane that Wilrix has just finished. They're all there. They're right at our fingertips, and you go on Instagram and it's right there. I think we're so lucky as wargamers now. We are so lucky. There's so much out there to help us do the hobby, and so many options that it almost becomes like, God, there's too many options. There was a period of time where you could do it all, almost do it all, but now you have to accept that you're not going to do it all. And I think it's entirely built off the back of that pedigree. And we all hope that we're going to see our favourite films turn up as games. But at the moment, the idea of having a Dune miniatures war game would be fantastic. But that's because I'm listening to Dune at the moment, so it's there.
Yeah.
But I went absolutely nuts for the Alien versus Predator models. Bought practically the whole bloody lot, because Aliens is one of my favourite films ever. So
I think what probably the biggest factor for me, or I think, because they've got the 500 stores, Games Workshop opens people's eyes to the world of miniature gaming, and even more so now, because obviously you see it through lots of different media. So it's almost like Games Workshop finds the hobby gene, that they used to call it, or creates the miniature gamers. So the reason, Ben, that you're excited about a Dune miniatures game is because you are a miniature gamer. You play miniature games, and now and you want one from Dune. It's not because you're interested in Dune and you think, oh, it would be cool to have little models of these and run around on the table and roll dice with them. So I think, like, it's almost like Games Workshop it's a miniatures game and miniatures IP, which has now got loads of other stuff coming with it. Whereas, like, Star Wars is the Star Wars IP, which is a science fiction story, and one of its little things is that it's got a miniatures game, I guess. Because I must admit, like, it's interesting because I don't know if you remember Spartan Games in Shepton Mallet. So they did a number of different games, and they got the Halo franchise to create a miniatures game. At first it was fleet battles, and then they did like 15 mil ground battles. And I remember when I read that, I thought, wow, that's a massive deal for them. That's going to make them a fortune. They're going to be huge because loads of people love Halo, and they're all going to want these miniatures. Well, the company's gone. It's gone now because it didn't do that. And I guess, like I say, I think that's because, you know, what Games Workshop does is open people's eyes to miniature gaming. And you won't just automatically make that leap. Just because you like Halo doesn't mean you're suddenly going to wake up one morning and think, oh, I wonder if there's tiny little models of these. Whereas if you walk down the street and see a Games Workshop with a bloody great Space Marine in the window, and you might think, oh, he looks cool. He's like the guy in Halo. I'll go in here.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what happens moving forward, like as the high streets sort of suffer and there's less people out there.
Well, I mean, I know loads of game, you know, people that have played the, like, you know, like Total War or the Space Marine game that have no interest in miniature painting, and because it's just not their thing, you know. And I think that's probably, you know, partly to do with it. Plus, I mean, you know, the other thing, you know, and it's certainly true for myself, and then, you know, it probably resonates with other people, is that I've only got a finite amount of spare time to do this hobby. And, you know, like I you know, it's added expense, but it's also my time, and, you know, I barely get my Warhammer projects finished, if at all, let alone, you know, picking something else up and, you know, sort of giving my time over to that. You know, it's all well and good, you know, like, you know, with Dan and, you know, having your Lego Millennium Falcon or whatever. I've got a couple of, like, quite high-end Transformers that I display. But, you know, you just buy them because they're cool. You take them out of the box and you put them on a shelf. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to invest. You know, they're cool to look at, but you don't have to invest any time building them and whatnot. It's why, you know, well, I know we're in the wilds, but it's what, I mean, it's something I was going to mention. It was sort of linking back to that sort of paint style for that Gargant we looked at earlier. But one thing that I know would be a massive rabbit hole for me that I probably never come back out of is Gundam modelling. And, you know, building, and because obviously the kits come and you can build them, you don't have to paint them. But then you start looking, you know, go down the odd rabbit hole of YouTube videos and showing you how to paint and weather them and make them look as cool as you know. That's a whole other world, you know. And there's a couple of guys in my hobby group that we've always said that we just stay away from that stuff, because if that ever got its hooks into us, we'd be done for, because that's just another, you know, it's just a whole nother time expenditure thing. Not so much, you know, not being able to afford it or whatever. It's time more than anything, you know.
I think it's also worth, like, remembering that we think of Star Wars as a famous and a massive science fiction IP, and Lord of the Rings, big fantasy IP. But actually, for sheer written content and background and depth, 40K and fantasy are just huge, massive, really fantastic universes. They aren't just a bolt-on to help the game now. They are in of themselves just incredible, with loads of depth and interest. And there must be, I would imagine, there's got to be
Really
more written about 40K than anything science fiction. It's massive, thousands of books.
Yeah. You're right.
So actually, if you went to Star Wars, I mean, the reason I'm collecting the Star Wars is, as much as I'm interested by the gaming, like how it works as a game, because I like miniature games, I'm collecting because there's a film, and I remember the film, and I love the film. It's just, it's not because I want to, I feel like I'm missing something from my 40K sci-fi, because that's got everything in it.
Yeah.
Even Jedis.
Yeah, after watching Mandalorian, my view on whether a space marine could take down a Jedi has completely changed. Because if they're, whatever the metal is called that they're made out of, can stop a lightsaber, then there's going to be something in it.
Scar.
Yeah, there's going to be something about ceramite, the holy ceramite, that'll stop it.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as a lightsaber just clangs off of a suit of power armor, the game is over. And if you can't, and if they keep dodging out of the way of the bolter shells, they're just going to get a flamethrower out. So dodge this. If that doesn't work, rocket launcher. And if that doesn't work, Titan.
Right. Well, that was a good wit. That was a good Wilds, actually. We had some actual things to talk about.
I do have one more thing to talk about, which is Tinker Turf, which is it's a company from Tinker House. But Tinker Turf have done pre-painted modular scenery as part of it, and they've just released and funded their next sci-fi stuff, which is really cool. What I like about it is it comes in kind of brand new and shiny painted, and sort of dirty and scabby painted, which I really like. So if you want to go for a more kind of clean look, it's you've got both options. But there's things like a communications tower, fortress walls, trains. I really like. I think the thing that caught my eye was the sort of the setup it did with a kind of shipping crate sort of depot thing, with the big sort of crane structure with loads of shipping crates and things to move it around. And I think the structure with the shipping crates really added the kind of a sort of sense of scale to the setup that just buying sort of the crane and the shipping crates that you get for the Munitorum board for 40K just didn't have.
So what is special about? What's it made out of?
I don't know actually, but it's basically come straight out of the box, dude. And that's what I like about it. That's the bottom line about what I like about it, because so many times I buy scenery and think, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to build this. And I love building scenery, but at the same time, there's always that little, I have a real soft spot for scenery that you just buy and you get it out of the box and stick it together and do it. And it's painted. I think it's pre-cut board, but it doesn't look like board, which is what's really cool about it. It looks really nice as a table. Like I said, I'm a very big soft spot for something that you can just assemble and it's done.
Yeah,
absolutely. So worth having a look at. Tinker Turf. We'll obviously put links on the episode release post.
Cool. Well, I think that kind of brings us to a close, really, doesn't it?
I think it does. Was that you washing your brush out?
Yeah.
You've been painting?
No, I literally just picked up a brush then when you were talking because I was kind of not interested.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Love you too.
Gosh.
Right.
Yeah,
so
but our relationship is built on truth.
we're on all the social medias of at the 2P's podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and at Pro Painted. If you want to hear more of Rob and the Pro Painted guys, they're on all three too. At Pro Painted or Pro Painted Studios, is it, or Pro Painted Podcast? Either
Pro
one.
Painted Podcast, I think either one. And
Yeah,
I'm at Rob Ellis 21. I'm at on Twitter.
Yeah, obviously, if you don't catch any of that, we'll put all that on the release post too. So it's been lovely to have you guys on. Really nice to hang out with you, Rob.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you both.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, you're very welcome, mate. It's been ace. It's been ace, and I'm looking forward to seeing this Exodite army
in 2050.
When there's a plastic one.
Yeah. More importantly, I'm looking forward to seeing the development of your cake decorating skills.
Oh, awesome! Yeah. I thought you were going to say.
That's what I'm keen to see.
Looking forward to Games Workshop's Exodite release in about 3 months.
Yeah. No, it will be exactly 2 months after you finish your collection.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, guys, thank you very much.
No, awesome. Thank you.